Hello, 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 and welcome to the Kevin Ross Emery Show. And we are on, as we are the first Thursday of every night, as I play with technology at the beginning with our resident political pundit, our own in-house, none other than Matt Connarton. Matt, how are you?
Yeah, I'm getting by. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
I'm a little quiet. I'm a little quiet in my own headphones, which is fine. Yeah, I'm okay. Are you out of the basement?
I am out of the basement.
Congratulations.
My office is pretty well done. It's not complete, but if you look around, I'm calling it my office arboretum because it's filled with plants and light. And I am, if it was summer, you'd even see a light coming down from my skylight, giving me the light I deserve.
Oh.
So, yeah, I'm in the basement.
What was that word? Arboretum?
Arboretum.
What does that mean?
Arboretum. It's a place that houses lots of plants.
Ah.
So, yep. So I am here. I still have a few other things to do. I actually had them come in today and measure for blinds for the window. I'm getting the blinds that you can bring from the top down and the bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a window right beside me that the light during late morning to mid-afternoon shines right on my screen. I can't see anything. So anyways, yeah, so I am getting blinds put in to block the light when I'm taping. I've reoriented the office so it's all set up different than it was. And I'm loving it. And the kitchen is 99.99% done. They have to fix one thing, and then they will be done. And so, yeah, now all I have to do is pay the bills. So, yeah, but living the big life here. The dining room is all done. The new bathroom is in. The kitchen is functional. I'm still putting art up on the walls. A lot of art left to put up on the walls. And I mean, the kitchen was mostly done when you were here a couple of weeks ago. I mean, there was still a few things they needed to do.
Yeah.
So now all I have to do is get the custom-made piece of stained glass. I want to go in that big square that overlooks the kitchen. And, you know, there's always little stuff, but I am happy to be out of the basement. Hallelujah.
Well, being out of the bathroom is also a good thing.
Well, when I'm on air, it is.
Yeah. I mean, if you were doing the show from the bathroom, I'd have to assume you were ill.
Yeah. Well, I've been called sick before. So, talk to me about how, because you're doing the Saturday morning show from 9 to 12.
Yes.
On 95.3 WMNH.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah, or you can go to mattconnarton.com and you can tap into the show there where you can be commenting to Matt and his musical guest as they're playing. So what has been one of your favorite musical performances recently? Like who's really stood out to you? Who do you want to tell my audience, especially if they're a local band, that they should try to catch when they're playing?
Oh, good Lord. There's so many. There's so many. Well, actually, you know, I'll plug this, this coming Saturday's show since it's only 2 days away, if you don't mind. So we've got, a couple of friends of ours, Eleanor and Spelfie. They're doing a big event called Spelfie Fest, which is going to be the 24th at Jewel in Manchester. And, part of the point of this event, it's going to be an all-day festival. And part of it is to help raise awareness and money for one of the organizations that Jenny is involved in, which researches CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome, which is one of those rare diseases that because it's rare, it doesn't get as much attention and research as it deserves. So we're going to be talking all about that this coming Saturday on the show. And we also have BF Raid, Boston's Final Raid. These guys are legends in the metal scene, in the Boston metal scene. They've been around for a long time, and they're going to be on with us too. And, you know, we always, it's very eclectic. I would just impress that on people. It's not like when you tune into my show, you're only going to hear me interviewing rock bands, or you're only going to hear me interviewing singer-songwriters, or, you know, we talk to a lot of different kinds of people, doing a lot of different kinds of music, and a lot of people in the music industry listen to our show. And we also have people who do other things like promoters and artist managers and producers and all kinds of interesting people on the show. So check it out, Matt Connarton Unleashed.
Yeah. So it's so funny that you kept the Matt Connarton Unleashed, even though you're not really doing any of the political stuff that you used to do.
Yeah, well, two reasons for that, Dr. Kevin. One is, well, maybe even more than two, but, you know, got to build the brand. You know, Matt Connarton Unleashed has been, I started it as a podcast all the way back in summer of 2011. So, you know, people know the name. It's very Googleable. Of course, it helps that I have a rare last name. But right from the beginning, it had always been a mix of music and politics. And because those are my two favorite subjects. And then on WMNH within the last year or so, we got away from the politics, but that is going to be returning as well, not on the WMNH iteration of the show, but on the podcast iteration of the show, which we are reviving. And I know I've been saying that for a while, and other things have been happening that have kind of kept pushing that back and pushing that back. But I think within the next couple of days, I'm going to be doing something where I'm going to be talking with Eric Pilcher, who is, I don't know if you know Eric at all. He used to do film reviews. Yeah, he used to do film reviews on my show, and then he's taken a break from that. But he wants to do kind of a postmortem of the election. Eric is a resident of the great state of Iowa. He's a Republican, but a never Trumper, or never again Trumper. And he wants to kind of do a postmortem on the election, and we might do that either Sunday or Monday night. And so that might be the beginning of the revival of the podcast version of Matt Connarton Unleashed, where we do talk about politics, and without having to worry about what anyone at the how anyone at the station feels about it, I'll be free to just say what I want, like really just uncensored. I might even swear, Dr. Kevin. I might even swear.
Oh, no.
I might.
Not you. I thought you were a good, you know, religious boy.
Well, no, I'm not religious. I am a good boy. And I mean, I try to be. I've never been arrested, for example. I'm not a felon. Right. I've never been caught. I'm not a felon, even though, you know, that doesn't mean much anymore. You can be a felon, and hell, you can be a felon and become president of the United States. But I'm used to not swearing because I'm used to being on FM terrestrial radio. But for the podcast version of the show, of course, free from FCC regulation, if I do feel like dropping an F-bomb, or if Eric does, it could happen completely unencumbered and uninhibited, and dare I say, unleashed.
No. So check my little ticker at the box, because I was putting it together as you were talking.
Yes.
Did I get everything right?
9 to 12 Saturday. Yep. You got it.
So if you are not in the Manchester, New Hampshire area, you can go to mattconnerton.com and it will take you there. And that's where I'm assuming that they're going to also find the podcast. mattconnerton.com.
Yes. You'll be able to find everything right on the site. If you go to mattconnerton.com/live, it gets you directly there. And yeah, please come check it out.
Well, you know, our conversations on our first Thursday of the month, since you haven't been doing politics on your radio show as much, or any for a few months now, it is, you know, we've actually been talking less politics on this show, because a lot of times I go, oh, what have you been discussing on your show? What's been coming up? What have you been hearing? So, we've found a plethora of other things to talk about. I don't think you and I, Matt, will ever run out of things that we can find to talk about.
Sure, sure.
Not the nature of the beast.
Right.
So I also want to find out, because at some point we obviously need to dive into politics tonight, but I thought that before I got ill to my stomach, we could have a few other conversations. Mm-hmm. And I have some thoughts. I also have some thoughts from a spiritual perspective of what just happened, and I want to make sure I kind of get those out. But how has the new edition of Life Coach on top of Hypnotist been working out for you?
Well, it's interesting. So I haven't really kind of developed any kind of a life coaching program yet, but I have some ideas. But coincidentally, I had a session online last night with a client who actually said to me, I think I might want to do this on a regular basis. And I thought, well, I told him, I said, well, we can certainly do that. And I thought, yeah, that's another little push in that direction now, isn't it?
Universe is pushing you, baby.
Yep. It does seem that way.
Yep. And God knows I've been pushing you.
Yes. That is true.
So you actually joined me about a month ago at a chamber event. How was that for you, by the way? I don't think we talked about it on air.
Excuse me. No, it was great, and I appreciate you introducing me to some people. Those kinds of, Chamber of Commerce events, for someone new who doesn't know anybody in the room except, you were the one person there who I knew. So I appreciate, like I said, you introducing me to some folks, and, it can be a little awkward at first. I'm not, I'm, as you know this about me, Dr. Kevin, I'm actually an introvert.
Yeah.
I have certain extrovert characteristics, but as many introverts do, but I am an introvert. So for me, that initial engaging in conversation with complete strangers, it can be a little challenging. But I did meet some wonderful people, one of whom I'll say hello to him in case he happens to be watching, Dave Dearborn and I think he's new to the chamber. So I'm not sure if you introduced me to him or if he just came up and introduced himself or how that came about, from St. Mary's Bank. But so we hit it off really well, and we're working on something that I can't really announce publicly, but so that was great, and met several wonderful people that night, and it was a great event, very positive, very welcoming, and the food was nice. I really I ate a lot, and because I always say it's my stomach's world. You all just live in it. And so that part's important. And so I was well fed, and it was great. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
So I was there part of the Dave Dearborn, because I met him that night for the first time as well, and then I kind of roped you in to pass it off to you.
Right, I couldn't remember. Yeah,
but he came. We actually did a meeting. He's very nice. I mean, I have no need in this moment for his service.
Yeah.
But he's opened the door, because sometimes I shake things up in certain areas. I mean, one of the secrets of networking, because I believe this, that I created a networking class that I used to teach back in the 80s.
Oh.
I developed this course and I taught it when I worked for American Express. And in fact, the division vice president of the area I was in insisted that first-year planners mandatorily had to take my networking class as part of their sales training. And then I went on and I evolved out of that. And then when I was teaching at the MBA level boot camp for entrepreneurs, I also taught a modified version. I mean, I say modified, let's say networking 2.0. I kind of, evolved. It evolved as I evolved. And I've spoken twice at chamber events on networking and public speaking. So, I mean, networking's my gig.
Yeah.
And, the thing is you always do better at networking if you're not trying to just go in there with the kind of, I need to schedule an appointment, or I need to sell somebody tonight. I mean, networking at its best is something that has a slow build. And in fact, there's another networking group that I meet with on Zoom twice a month. And I've made some great connections there. I've actually got some clients out of there, but made some great connections. I'm getting ready to do business with somebody that's part of that networking group. And I can always bring you on there as a guest. I mean,
I would love it. Yeah.
We meet at like 8:30 in the morning, but it's on Zoom. And yeah, so offline, let me know. We're going to be, the next one is the 14th. So if you're available on the 14th, I will I'll send you the link. I'll contact the woman who runs the group, send you a link. You can come to 2 of the networking events for free. And then if you want to stay after that, there's a small fee involved, which most of it goes to the fact that I love this concept. I love this way that they do this, which is that if you meet with somebody else in the networking group, your name goes into a hat, a metaphorical hat, and she has a bunch of $25 gift certificates that she gives out, so that it encourages people to set up appointments to meet with other people in the networking group. And, I had to actually do some social adjustment, because I go into a networking group and I'm kind of like, so tell me what you do, and I try to like connect on that level. And the first couple of times I went, it was clear that the people wanted to know more of who I was as a person and wanted to share who they were as a person. And what they did kind of came in after, which I love that kind of networking. But when I first step into a networking group, I step in with the mentality of, tell me what you do, tell me about your business, like this. And then we'll get into the more personal stuff. If you set up one-on-ones with this group, and even as a guest, they'll ask you, is there somebody here you would like to meet, or somebody who would like to meet you? And so I know a couple of people who came in as guests, and before they even joined the networking group, did a one-on-one with somebody, and now is doing some business with them. And they hadn't even joined yet. So so the next one's the 14th, and then they only have they usually have 2, but because of the holidays, they're only having 1 in November and 1 in December. So if you want to hit the November one on the 14th, make sure you reach out to me after the show.
Count me in, but I'll reach out to you after the show to confirm. But yeah, I'm looking at my calendar on my phone, and I'm definitely available that morning.
Yeah, well, that would be great. I'll reach out to her tomorrow and send you the link.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. I also, I can bring you at some point to another National Greater Chamber of Commerce event, because you can bring a guest up to twice before they're kind of like, is the chamber for you or is it not for you?
Right.
But where you're where you're starting to run office hours in Nashua, but we can see.
Yeah. Plus, the chamber might want to monitor too, like how much food am I consuming during each visit, and figure out, is that like, am I a liability? Am I eating all the food? Am I only eating most of the food? How much of the food am I consuming?
You left before I did, and I was horrified at how much food they were throwing out at the end, because it was a caterer.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I should have stayed longer and eaten more food.
You could have just stayed longer and eaten more food, Matt.
Oh, that legitimately makes me sad to know that.
It always makes me sad when I see them. They were getting ready to throw something out, and I went right by and I grabbed it before it could hit the tree.
Yes.
it was like an apple. I'm like, why are you throwing out an apple? It's an apple. It's an uneaten apple. Why are you throwing this out? That shit drives me crazy.
What they should do is throw it all into some kind of bin and bring it to a food pantry. That's what they should do.
Yeah. Well, I think next time I go to an event at the chamber, and if it's a catered event, some businesses like in-house cater their stuff, you know, like we'll do something, but this was an outside catered event. I think the next time I'm just gonna bring some of my environmentally friendly bags I shop with, and at the end I'm like, are you throwing this away? And I'll take it.
Yeah.
And I'll take what I want to eat, but I'll you know, my husband works for Harbor Care, and they have a food pantry there.
Oh, there you go.
You know,
yeah,
I can't stand it when food gets wasted.
Oh, I know. Yeah, especially, you know, it's not as cheap as it used to be either, so that makes it even worse. Yeah, don't like to see.
Yeah, and for those of you that are joining us that like to kind of hear what's going on in the world and Matt and my political banter and perspective, in case you didn't know it, you know, as an inspirational catalyst, I also have years of experience as a business consulting, you know, and not that you've hired me as a consultant, Matt, but I think you can definitely vouch that I've been giving you some good ideas about how to grow your business.
Oh, definitely. No, I've learned a lot from you over the years. Absolutely. And recently. Yeah.
So, you know, I figured I'd just, you know, flash my business credentials in case anybody's looking for a good business catalyst who does have a spiritual underpinning. And, you know, it all filters in somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So have we avoided the big conversation long enough? Should we get into it? Let me see. Yeah, we're almost halfway through the show. I think my stomach will survive half my show talking about this shit show.
I would imagine we both have a lot to say about it.
Yeah. So do you want to hear my theory, or do you want to start with what's going on?
No, go ahead. Let's hear your theory.
So I think there's a couple of things. I mean, from a very practical standpoint, I hate to say this because he did have he made a lot of positive things happen during his presidency, but I am in the camp of that a lot of this falls squarely in Biden's lap, that he didn't back out earlier.
You know what's interesting, by the way, just as an aside, Dr. Kevin, when Eric Pilcher reached out to me about doing an election postmortem, he said that same thing. He said to me that he blames Biden for this.
And the second part of it is that if Biden had passed the rein on and said, we're going to have open debates among the people, Kamala might have gotten picked, but she might not have. There were some other very viable candidates that, you know, the last time. And I think that there were people that resented that they felt like Kamala was forced on them, like they didn't have a choice. I didn't feel that way. I was like, you know, looking at she was running against, the creature from the Orange Lagoon, that it didn't make any difference. She could have been the Pillsbury Doughboy, and I would have voted for her.
Right. Plus, the Pillsbury Doughboy makes a fun sound if you poke his stomach, so that's good. Yeah,
well, I'd like to poke the Orange Doughboy's stomach. But anyways, the missed days of things like, you know, spears and stuff like that. Anyways, you know, some days you just miss the Renaissance. No, but from a spiritual perspective, because let me tell you, I have been doing a lot of talking, a lot of clients off the ledge.
Yeah.
America's going through a dark night of the soul. America as a country is going through a dark night of the soul. I've said for years, you've heard me say that the fall of, humanity, the fall of this country, if it happens, it's going to not be, it's not actually at the core going to be the crazies on the left or the crazies on the right, because they both have crazies, but it's going to be the apathetic. And we have a lot of apathetics out there that are just looking for an S&M daddy to tell them what to do. And if you ever had somebody that was a sadist, it's Trump. And all of these, and they don't want to educate themselves. The number of ignorant statements when we had a world acclaimed recovery from the pandemic, beating every other country, but they didn't understand it. They couldn't hear it. They couldn't. And I partially blame that government, religions, and corporate America have systematically dumbed down America at every turn. They don't want thinkers. They don't want challengers. They don't want rebels. They want good little bots. And the good little bots were told by Daddy that he was going to save them from imaginary beast. But America's in a dark night of the, dark night of the soul. And they killed that message of the Democrats from, America's soul is at stake. But I don't know that America's soul is necessarily at stake, but I do think it's a dark night of the soul. And, that languaging didn't work. The other thing which I saw that I thought was particularly on the spot was the left over the last few years have gotten behind things and created things, like defund the police and Latinx and different things that are appealing to middle America, the working person, perhaps the person, and I'm going to say it this way, the friggin' lazy person that doesn't want to understand. And I think sound bites were part of the downfall of this election. And, and I was saying the other day to Jeff, I'm like, instead of saying defund the police, which actually was never really about defunding the police, it was about bringing people in that were better trained and taking some of the money instead of buying more weapons and providing more mental health people to deal with these people that the police are not trained to deal with, that then they end up when their crazy gets in place or their more racist tendencies show up, that they take out their tasers, their guns, their feet on your throat type of thing. And if they had said, instead of defund the police, if they had said fund mental health better, it would have gone over a whole lot better.
Right.
And so these are some of the thoughts that I've had about like what went sour, what went wrong. But from a spiritual perspective, we're in a dark night of the soul. Will we survive it or not? We got 4 years and a coin toss. Actually, we've got 2 years.
We have 2 years. Yeah.
Because, and you posted somewhere what I'm getting ready to say. In 2 years, we're going to see a blue wave.
Yes.
Because the people most affected by the Trump-Musk policies, because, Elon Musk is going to be the shadow president, not Vance.
Maybe. Who knows? Who knows, really?
But let's say I think the odds are as good that Elon Musk is going to have too much influence. Which
that's probably true.
And the people that voted are the ones that are going to feel the most feel the consequences of their vote, and I don't really think they're going to come after gay marriage. I think it would be too much of a nightmare. I mean, what are you going to do with the millions of people that are already married? I mean,
right.
You can't
No.
take marriage certificates away from people. So I'm not really worried about my marriage so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to be far less affected by Trump policies in most areas of my life than these people that are going to have to depend on Medicare or Medicaid, that depend on services, because Elon Musk already said, we're going to be tightening our belt. You're going to be suffering. Well, he's shopping for another Bel Air mansion. Why is he not suffering? What's his suffering? He's not doing any suffering.
Right.
He's going to probably, be pacing with Trump about how many billions he steals from the American people.
Yeah.
So anyways, my rant is over. You're up.
Well, so you keyed in on something when you were talking about defund the police, because that's an example of how Democrats continue to be horrible at messaging. And I think it is. I think that is part of what I think there are many factors actually that cost them this election. And I feel you on the dark night of the soul and all of that, and we can get into that too, of course. But I think for the Democrats, well, first of all, Biden. I agree with you what you were saying about Biden. Biden never should have run for a second term. He hinted. He never flatly said, but he hinted. Implied when he was running the first time that he was going to be kind of I think transitional president was a term that he used, implying that, he just wanted to do 4 years, right the ship, get us through COVID, etc. And then that should have been it. And then we could have had an open primary, and maybe it would have been Kamala Harris, maybe someone else like Gavin Newsom and so forth. I do think it made sense, though. I mean, Biden waited much too long, and there was that disastrous debate. But because he waited so long, I think going with Kamala Harris at that point was the best option, because it was the least. Yeah, it was the least messy. There just wasn't time to do anything else. And I think she ran an excellent campaign overall. But I
agree.
But the messaging is a problem. And one major area where the messaging is a problem is on the economy. The truth about the economy is that it's very, very strong. Our GDP is excellent, lowest unemployment in, I believe, in history since we've been measuring the unemployment rate. So all of the fundamentals of the economy are strong, except inflation. And I get it. I feel it too. We all do. The money doesn't go as far at the grocery store. Housing is a problem, and that's sort of part of inflation, but also it's a separate issue in some ways. But so we've got problems in the economy, but the economy itself overall is very strong. And our inflation, as bad as it might have seemed, it's still the lowest of all the modern industrialized countries coming out of COVID. This COVID hangover that we had to go through. And then we end up, after all the hand wringing about how inevitably we were going to fall into a recession, a post-COVID recession, it never happened. And we've actually achieved that soft landing that people were hoping for. But here's the thing. Democrats do such a poor job of explaining this, because it's like, Bill Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid, back when he was running in 92, when the fundamentals of the economy were not strong and we were in an actual recession. And so that's the number one weakness, because, you've got Trump and all the Republicans saying, oh, look at inflation. Inflation is so terrible. You've got to, so the Democrats have to explain to people, look, our inflation is the lowest. We're in the best place in terms of inflation compared with the rest of the world. This is a hangover from COVID, but it's getting better. The fundamentals of the economy are strong, and we are coming in for a soft landing. You got to explain that to people. You got to take credit for it, but they don't do it. That's the number one thing. You know, all this polling that shows Americans are concerned about the economy. They think the economy is terrible. Well, if you're a Republican and the people you listen to all day, your Republican elected officials and Republican media, they're telling you all day long, every day, the economy's terrible, then, you know, then that's what you believe. But Democrats could counteract that by just pounding the table and saying, no, you have to look at this and be forceful and aggressive about it. But they're never as forceful and aggressive about anything as Republicans are. So the messaging is always a problem. And you know, Kamala Harris, you know, she talked about an opportunity economy, and she did put forth some great sounding policy proposals, but she also should have been pounding that podium in every speech and saying, look where we are economically. Look at our recovery from COVID. That was the Biden-Harris administration that pulled off this recovery, this post-COVID recovery, where we have record low unemployment and you know, a record stock market, because the stock market actually does better under the Democrats than Republicans, but I'm sure Republicans generally have no idea that that's the case. You know, she should have been pounding that podium about all the good things, and then talking about how all the things that she wanted to do to continue to expand on this economic miracle coming out of the pandemic. I mean, we rebounded from the pandemic economically much better than anyone could have predicted. I mean, it really, the elasticity of this economy, truly incredible. So, you know, that should have been the messaging. If your number one vulnerability is the economy, because half the country is convinced that the economy is terrible, then you've got to explain to those people why the economy is actually really good. And here's the truth. And they're not telling you the whole truth about the economy, while also expressing empathy for the fact that, yeah, it sucks that groceries are so expensive. It sucks that housing has gone up. But those areas, we have plans to deal with those areas. But we're going to be able to implement those plans because we've done such a great job with the economy in all these other areas. But the Democrats, they just can't get it right when it comes to messaging. The other thing about the economy is, and this is going to offend a lot of people because they're going to take this slightly wrong, but and I'm not just picking on the right when I say this. The left, this is a problem on the left as well, but more so on the right. We live in a country full of low information voters. I came to the conclusion a long time ago, the average, look, I haven't studied economics. I took an economics course in high school. I didn't take any in college. But even somehow I'm able to understand something that I don't think 99% of Americans understand. The president of the United States does not control the economy. John Hopwood on my show used to refer to it as the big man theory. People like to think of like the president of the United States sitting at the resolute desk controlling the various levers of the economy. It doesn't work that way. The economy is much larger and more complex than any president's economic policy. I'm not saying that presidents can't influence the economy with certain policies, but minimally, yes. But a lot of it is cyclical. A lot of it is things that are out of anyone's control. So just like I didn't blame Trump for crashing the economy. Trump did crash the economy with the 14 days to slow the spread, shutting everything down and everything. Trump crashed the economy. As much as I loathe Trump, I'm fair and consistent. I don't blame him for it. I think what he did in that moment, at that point, had to be done. Just like I don't really give Biden credit for this amazing, recovery that we had coming out of the pandemic. Maybe a little bit of credit, but actually there were a lot of other factors. Our economy in the United States was so structurally sound that we were able to weather the pandemic and come out of it much better than anyone could have expected. But most Americans, it's like, when it's their guy when it's their guy in the White House, they give that president credit for anything good economically. And when it's not their guy in the White House, they'll blame that president for anything wrong economically. And it's just ignorance. And but you can't tell anybody that. I mean, like 99.9% of Americans are convinced that the president of the United States controls the American economy. And I don't know why everyone thinks that, but it's not true. The only people who don't think that are economists, people who actually study the economy, and apparently me. Somehow I know that. I don't know why. I don't think I'm smarter than everybody else, but well, maybe some people, but but understanding that the Democrats should be pounding the table. They should have been pounding the table and saying, look at how good the economy is in all these areas. Let's get the parts where we're struggling. Let's get those in line with the rest of these areas. We can do it. We've been very successful with this. Let us continue. We're not going back, which I thought was an excellent campaign slogan. Didn't work, but I thought it was very good. We're not going back. We need to keep going forward. But that wasn't the message. The Democrats, they can't figure out how to message anything. They can't figure out how to actually communicate this stuff. It's maddening. I ran longer than I meant to, but it's just the economy stuff drives me nuts. The economy is, I firmly believe, to a large extent, that's what cost Kamala Harris the election. The economy. Why? Why though? Because the economy is so terrible? No, the economy is freaking great. It is outstanding. No matter how good the economy is, it's never perfect. But no, half the country thinks the economy is terrible. We're in this terrible, it's almost like the Great Depression, you know, the way some of these people talk. And it's like, all right, well, you exist in an alternate reality, I guess. But congratulations, you got your alternate reality president. So that's where we are. Anyway.
So there's a few things here that I want to comment. You did get a comment about your show, about the loving your Saturday morning show as well.
Oh, Elizabeth Towns. Yes. Hello. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And she also did another comment about being disappointed in New Hampshire's governor's race. And the presidential election made me very sad. Women's rights. So we will talk a little bit about New Hampshire, which again did what seems to be a very New Hampshire thing. Mm-hmm. But to thank you for your comments, Elizabeth.
Yes, thank you.
That first of all, I applauded that she was willing to go on Fox, and I thought that in the scheme of things, she was no Pete Buttigieg, but I think that she held her own.
I agree.
And but I've watched his interviews on Fox, and he does try to communicate some of that messaging. But
he does it better than anybody. He does it better than anybody. I wish we could just clone him. He's one of the few Democrats who actually knows how to do it. One of the very, very few. Him and Gavin Newsom. There's two.
So I think that other things at play was that there was a lot of dog whistles around racism and Black women in power, because one of Trump's strongest things were young white men.
Yeah, the bro culture.
Yep.
Yep.
And if when they start, the thing is, I don't know if they're going to be smart enough to realize when their life is in hell in 2 years that they voted it in, because for the most part, they don't take any responsibility on anything.
No.
So you know, they're going to find some other set of excuses. But really, I go back to the fact that for 75 years, we've continually dumbed down the American public. And they're along for the ride, and the majority take no real interest or responsibility. They just want kindergarten answers. And the Republicans are good at stirring fear, telling lies, telling them repeatedly, even saying their lies, and they don't care.
So, JD Vance with the, well, if I have to make things up to get people's attention, that's what I'll do. Yeah, exactly.
So, but I do think that, you know, I look at Gavin Newsom is also a good messenger. I agree with you. Pete's the best messenger.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, and Kamala came a long way from when she was in the primaries.
She did.
Of doing that. But, you know, we still tolerate a lot of racist and misogynistic commentary and don't call it out in a way and still allow it in large parts of the country. And so I've asked you this question before. You've been consistently on one side, and I think you wiggled a little last time. Is it time to get rid? I mean, he did win the popular vote this time.
Yes.
But I still think it's time to get rid of the Electoral College. It gives a few states too much power because they're battleground states.
Oh, I'd love to get rid of it. I just don't think the only part I may have wiggled is I just don't think it'll ever happen. I can't imagine that it will ever happen. But I think I'd love to see it go. Because if you get rid of it, then everyone's vote counts. The way it is right now, if you're in a blue state, like if you're a Republican in a blue state or a Democrat in a red state, your vote doesn't count. If you're in a swing state, your vote counts. But because of the Electoral College system, if you're in a state where we already know who's going to carry that state, your vote doesn't count. So let's make everyone's vote count.
The only other solution is if they could amend the Electoral College that said, if we can't get rid of it, if they could amend that the votes in the Electoral College represent the percentage. So if you have 100 and 75 were Democratic and 25 were Republican, that 75 votes go towards the president of, you know, the Democrat, and 25. That would be the only way that the Electoral College would be able to survive as actually a viable thing. If they said, that's it, we can't get rid of it, but your electoral votes have to actually represent what your state said. A few people don't get to decide for everybody in your state, because then it would be very different. I mean, does that make sense?
Well, I think what you're talking about is the same thing effectively as getting rid of it. Because what your idea to me, if I understand it correctly, would render it meaningless. So you might as well get rid of it, because in your scenario, you're still ultimately just going by the popular vote, right? Unless I'm misunderstanding something.
No, you're not misunderstanding anything. My question is, and I don't know the answer to this, would it be easier to amend the college than get rid of it? Is there a way that the college would be amended that would not make a heavy lift of getting rid of it altogether?
It's such a heavy lift no matter what, because it requires amending the Constitution, which...
But that's what I'm not sure of.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could amend the college, if you could pass a law around the college that didn't take amendment level approval.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so if you could pass a law that wouldn't require an amendment to the Constitution. That's interesting. I don't know. I mean, we did pass the Electoral Count Act. But that doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe that's an interesting idea. I might research that a little bit if there's a way to do that without. I see what you're saying now. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Again, it's just, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
I hate that expression.
Yeah, I know.
I love our kitties.
You
have cats.
I have 2 cats. My 2 cats, when I use it, my 2 cats always look at me like, whoa.
Yeah, no kidding.
So New Hampshire, consistent. Let's keep a Republican governor, but everyone we send to Washington will be Democratic.
Yeah, and we went blue for president, as we usually do.
We went blue for president.
Yeah.
Do we just have multiple personality disorder? What do you think? What's our story here in New Hampshire in the wonderful world of Matt?
No, I think we have an independent spirit here. I actually think it's healthy. Even though I did not I know both Kelly Ayotte and Joyce Craig a little bit personally, and I like them both as people. In another time, I might have voted for Kelly Ayotte, actually. But now that she's a part of a party that has become so fully MAGA, that, I voted straight, right down the ballot, all Democrat. I don't know if I'll ever vote for another Republican in my lifetime. I voted for Chris Sununu for governor a couple of times. Now I regret it because, as soon as it became political, he used to be pretty tough on Trump, but then as soon as it became more politically expedient for him to get back on the Trump train, there he goes. So I'm pretty disappointed with him. And I'm at a point where, unless there's a massive course correction in the Republican Party, I don't know that I'll ever vote for another Republican at this point. So, but I do think though, I think it says something positive about New Hampshire that we're able to do that, and kind of, split the ticket, so to speak, with our votes. I think it shows that we still have that independent attitude and spirit here. And I think it's a healthy thing. I'm not as enthusiastic about Kelly Ayotte as I might've been at one time, but I think overall though, it's a healthy thing.
Well, I'm thinking about in my head the price that at some point will get paid by Republicans for ethical cowardice. Because that's what I look at it as anyone that actually had an ethical or moral compass was an anti-Trumper.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of it's funny, just earlier I was listening to one of the Bulwark podcasts. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bulwark, but they're never Trump Republicans. And I never in my life, if you had told me 10 years ago I'd be a fan of Bill Kristol, I would have said, no, you're crazy. But I don't know if you've seen anything, but he's like totally anti-Trump. I don't think he even considers himself a conservative anymore. But yeah, and look, in 2026, there's going to be a big blue wave because that's just the way the pendulum swings,
The other thing I wanted to throw out, because I wanted to respond, but you had a lot of stuff which I'm fine with. I don't have a problem that you went on a rant. I went on a rant before you did. But I do think that the Recovery Act and the CHIPS Act were things that helped the landing pad for the COVID that Biden gets credit for. The Biden-Harris administration got credit for, and kind of took pages out of FDR after Herbert Hoover let the oligarchs of the time convince him to make the Depression worse by making choices that punished the middle class and poor to support the rich. And that's what Herbert Hoover did, that took the stock market crash and made it even worse than it was to start with. I mean, Hoover put in policies that are being echoed by Trump today that made us go into that deep depression. And what it led to was, you know, him getting elected to 4 terms.
Right.
And Congress, the first 1 or 2 terms were heavily Democratic in both houses. So, you know, the Republicans don't learn. I do still think this is going to bite them, not just in 2026. I think it's going to bite them in 2030. You know, of course, you know, Trump is going to do everything he can to create a Christian democracy, but you know, he idolizes, you know, Hungary and, you know, and Putin and all of those people, and he's trying to move our country to be more like, you know, an illiberal democracy, a Christian democracy,
an autocracy. And
yeah, when, you know, everything he says, you know, this is the huge amount of hypocrisy. And then we're going to be wrapping up, but I'll see if you have any closing thoughts. But the largest amount of hypocrites are, and I have been referring to them for months now, as CINOs, which is Christian in name only, because their actions are not Christian at all. They do not align with any kind of Christian value. And they support some man that looks like he's performing oral sex on a mic, mm-hmm. and is talking about serial killers as admirable, and they, in some warped reality, thinks that this is their Christian choice for president. And I did have one interesting thought, because Trump can't run again, and if he can't pull out completely trashing democracy, because, you know, he talked about wanting to try to change the Constitution so he could stay in office till he died, basically, which can't happen soon enough, is that he he is notorious that he treats his allies as bad as he treats his enemies. And I would have almost to the point of fantasize. He gets in the White House and he basically tells the evangelicals to shove it, because he doesn't need them anymore. Mm-hmm. Can't get reelected. And we all know there's not a Christian bone in his body. Every action does that. You can't be Christian if you don't actually ask for forgiveness and then try to not repeat the sin.
Right.
So right there, done, gone, because he repeats it, and then has nothing to be forgiven for. So you already know he's a nutcase. I mean, so these Christians are desperate, and I just daydream about him going into the office and just completely taking all those sheep and shearing them. Because that is a potential thing that Trump would do if he's decided he doesn't need him any longer.
As far as you know, Christianity and Trump being so unchristian and whatnot, I see it a little bit differently, only in the sense that I don't think it matters in that, to me, organized religion generally, not only Christianity, but organized religion generally, to me, is has very little to do with God, and it has everything to do with politics. So I don't think that's why, you know, when people say, well, how can all these people who call themselves Christian support someone as unchristian as Trump? Because the whole following Christ and all that's not even in their heads. They don't really care about any of that. They care about the politics of it. They won't admit that to each other, or perhaps even themselves, but that's what I firmly believe to be the truth. I also think it's entirely possible, and you know, all this stuff about Trump ending democracy and all that. You know, it's possible that he won't be nearly as dangerous as people think, only because I'm not sure he's going to be motivated enough to care. What I mean by that is his number one priority, I firmly believe, in running for president again, was to keep himself out of prison. Now he can breathe a sigh of relief He's older. I'm sure he's even lazier than he's ever been. He might now, you know, he'll fire Jack Smith, do whatever, and then say, great, now I can play golf for the next 4 years. He might not be dangerous because he might be too old and tired. He's almost 80 years old. I'm sure his testosterone level is lower than it was in 2016. He's probably not really all that motivated to do these things. Hopefully, it's a theory. He might be just old and lazy, and he may not be nearly as dangerous as people think. But the one thing nobody's talking about, we also need to start thinking about, though, what happens when J.D. Vance becomes president, because J.D. Vance will be president. It's just a matter of how. I know nobody's talking about this yet, probably because it's scary. J.D. Vance will be president at some point, because Trump isn't going to serve until he's 82. Look, the guy's morbidly obese. He's almost 80. He eats a steady diet of fast food. He's going to end up with colon cancer, probably sooner rather than later, with the diet that he eats. I'm not trying to wish that on, you know, so some people are going to get so mad. Matt, how could you say that? I'm not saying I wish it on him. I'm just saying that's what's likely to happen. I'm not saying he's going to die in office, but he's going to be continuing to devolve. He's not going to serve his entire term. So at some point, we're going to have President J.D. Vance. And I do think we need to start kind of thinking about, you know, what happens when that happens too, and how we deal with that. Who knows? Might not be a bad thing. J.D. Vance at one time was a much more moderate character till he got ambitious. You know, well, who knows? But that's going to happen. That's definitely going to happen.
Well, you know, and we're technically out of time, but at least with my new format, it doesn't matter. No one can throw me off the air. Is
right.
J.D. Vance is a chameleon. He's going to say what he needs to say. I don't think that he actually has any real serious, deep convictions outside of power. And right. So it would be interesting. I mean, the safest way, and I saw somebody go, you know, how long is it going to take his cabinet to do the 25th Amendment to get rid of him once he's in? But, you know, the trouble is if they start doing it, every last one of those cabinet members will have Proud Boys and every other nutcase group at their doorstep threatening to kill them.
True.
Because they deified Trump.
Right. Agreed. Yeah.
You know, you know, and this is what's happened to this country. Nobody can spell anymore. They thought they should have been spelling vilified, and they spelled deified, and it's all gone downhill since. Okay, Matt, I'll talk to you in a month. I will reach out to me. I'll get you the information, and I'll see you Thursday morning.
Yes. Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Next week, Ashley will be back, and we'll be doing a show on gratitude.
Oh, very good.
What are you grateful for? Tune in, share, and let's talk about what we can be grateful for, since the presidential election is not one of those things.
Exactly.